Thank you for double-clicking your mouse tonight. You're listening to the Midnight Frightcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, what is up my spooky bitches? It is the Midnight Frightcast. We've been gone for a couple weeks, but now we're back with a super special episode. We're talking about It Chapter 2, and just in case you haven't seen it yet, we are talking about spoilers. No holds barred, we're talking about our opinions, everything that went on, so if you haven't seen it, you might want to click off, or if you don't give a fuck, just keep going. I'm Maddie, and I've got Greg.
I'm Spooky, sir.
Yeah, I got Patrick.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? There you go, Jesse. You can't steal that shit from me.
I got Josh.
I'm Spooky Bitch number 3.
Hey, everybody, how's it? Oh, I'll let you go. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We discussed that you were going to introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? Jesse.
And you know I can edit that whole thing out there since you stole that shit
You're
from
absolutely
me.
right. I did not think about that.
We're fixing all of tonight in post, pretty much, is what's going to happen. So, 4 of us have seen a movie. I do not go to the theater. So, we saw It Chapter 2, and just first I'd like to go around and ask everyone to tell me really briefly if you liked it or not. Briefly.
What the fuck?
Can that be our drinking game? Every time Jessica gets called out, we take a drink.
Yeah.
We're going to be
Well,
drunk.
I don't have very much
We're going to
left,
be
so-
drunk.
I gave my drinks away.
Greg, why don't you
motherfuckers.
start us off? Just real quick, couple sentences. What'd you think?
It Chapter 2 was a great drama movie with a mediocre horror attached.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you. That's the brief I
I
was
thought
talking
the question
about.
was whether we liked it or not.
She said brief.
Yeah, but you didn't say if you liked it.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, you enjoyed
I did
it.
enjoy it.
You did?
I did enjoy the dramatic and go.
All right. I'm
The
going.
wine's kicking in already.
Yes, it is.
This is going to get ugly.
It Chapter 2. Of course I liked it, and I probably liked it much more than anybody else at this table.
It Chapter 2, I liked it more than Patrick.
Waiting for the other. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
No, I'm just waiting for you to back that up during the conversation.
Oh, I'll back it up. I agree with Greg. Really fantastic drama. Definitely took the pedal off the horror, though. So I thought it was mediocre at best.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Greg and Josh. I liked it. It wasn't a bad movie, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have never seen this much enthusiasm at this
I was going
table.
to say. And
Come on,
all of our
guys.
listeners have now dropped off.
Yep.
No, it was great.
Thank
Well,
you and
said
have a good
brief,
night.
So we couldn't sit there and argue with each
No,
other.
it's
Said
okay.
brief, so-
We'll get to the arguing later. The
Yeah.
next, as you can probably tell everybody, we're kind of doing a Q&A style, so I'm just going to ask these guys a bunch of questions about It Chapter 2. How many times can we say that in one podcast?
There might be a
2.
contest later.
Yeah, there could be a contest later, or a drinking game, whatever you guys want to do.
We don't want to kill our listeners. All 2 of them.
Well, both
Myself
of you,
being one of them.
I know,
Yeah, you're
both
one
of
of
you have a good time. Well, this question I'm just going to open up to everybody. How do you think it compared to Chapter 1? What the fuck?
I told you the wine's kicking in.
I'll start.
You
Go
put your
ahead.
tongue in it. Like, what the hell?
I think Chapter 1 was much better. It was much better. 2 was not, like I said, a bad movie, but 1 is substantially better.
I agree with that a lot. I felt like there was a lot more depth to it. The horror was definitely better in 1. If there was much horror, comparatively speaking, I felt like it was a lot better in 1 than it was in 2. And then dramatic side of it was, I would say, pretty equal. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I agree with you.
I felt like they lost, minus 2 characters, they lost their transition character-wise from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2. A lot. I don't feel like they gave some people enough in Chapter 2. I thought Chapter 1 was by far the better of the 2. By far.
For me, it's hard to compare the 2 by saying which one is better than the other because Chapter 2 had its own voice compared to Chapter 1. The Chapter 1 was all about the kids. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to worry about the adults in any way, shape, or form. Chapter 2 had to deal with what's the story with the adults as well as what's the story with the kids. It definitely had its own voice, so the overall tone for each movie was different. It's hard for me to compare them that way. I put them both on the same level because of that.
I see myself breaking my own fucking rule tonight because the scoffs are going to come at Patrick. They're coming. I'm just going to throw them like razor blades at him.
How about this? If you had to, if you were going to like watch one of these movies again, which one would you reach for first?
That's a better way of putting it. I would reach for chapter 1 first.
Okay.
And then I would watch chapter 2 because it's a whole story. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, so basically around the table we've got that everybody enjoyed chapter 1 a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Except for Patrick, who's just playing with semantics.
But he'd take number 1 first, so.
No.
Read between the lines.
How do you think the adult actors did in capturing the characters that were set up by the child actors?
Ooh, me. This was the best part of chapter 2. Okay. Absolutely the best part. Everybody that they cast to portray the adult version of the children from number 1 was absolutely perfect. I don't know that I can go into much more than that, just because you have to go and you have to see how they were portrayed. And the one thing that I regret about going and seeing chapter 2 was I didn't go back and rewatch chapter 1 just to get myself updated and see where they were coming from. So I'm basing this off of seeing this movie 2 years ago. But from what I remember, and, we got little snippets of the kids coming back in chapter 2, which was a nice reprieve and a nice reminder of where they were coming from. The adult actors were just absolutely phenomenal, perfectly cast.
They all translated okay. 2 definitely outshined everybody else in that film. And Bill Hader outshined everybody in that film, I thought, and I can't think of his name, but the guy that played Eddie
he was
right
awesome.
there with him. But the other guy that I thought shined really bright too was the guy, and he wasn't in it enough, and he wasn't given enough, and his story was not in there enough. Was Bowers?
Oh, sure.
I can't think of his first name all of a sudden.
Clint?
Will?
Bill?
No, the
John?
No, shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ.
Ringo. Henry Bowers.
Henry Bowers, thank you. He was not, god damn it. He was not given enough. He's got way more story, I feel like, in the original miniseries than what came across on this one. And he's important to that story, too, because he's what, from the miniseries, and I don't know if this is the way in the book, but he's what got the kids to kind of believe again, or the adults to kind of believe again in Pennywise. And Pennywise used him to get to those characters, and it didn't come across in this one.
Not as much. And the way that you put that, it sounds like he's Dracula's Renfield. Almost.
Maybe, yeah, kind of
like that.
And they didn't give Bill Skarsgård enough to do in the movie either. So that's how I felt.
I saw something about in an article that like a lot of these kids were like digitally like de-aged. Did that show really in the movie?
The Finn Wolfhard one is super obvious.
Wow, really close to your mic.
Sorry. How about now?
Yeah, you're better.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Finn Wolfhard one's really obvious. I didn't really notice the other ones.
Yeah, his was really obvious. The other ones weren't quite as noticeable. Yeah.
The grown up. Sorry, I missed one. The grown up that played Ben too was another one that was not given.
Enough.
They basically were like, let's just cast a guy that's really good looking, and then just tell him just stand there and be good looking, and that's your part. They didn't give him anything in that movie at all. He got a little bit of a standout when he got to go find his token or whatever, and then after that, he was just kind of like, I'm here. I'm the hot guy.
And I think a lot of that is because they would have easily made this a 4-hour movie if you had spent too much time with each of the characters. And I feel like they gave him enough to connect him to the child actor, but enough to kind of let him do his own thing. And I would have loved to see a lot more Ben. Yeah, the guy that played Ben's character, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Easter egg, spoiler, the kid that played Ben in the original miniseries was sitting at the conference table in the new one. He's in
the conference call with.
He's in the conference call, yeah.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
That's interesting.
So I don't know what question we're on right now. So now
I think we're still on this one.
That's okay. Yeah, we were just talking about the adult actors.
Yeah. I agree with Greg and Josh that the actors were cast perfectly in this. The adult opposites of the grown up versions of them were cast absolutely wonderful. I had never heard of Jay Ryan, who
Jay
played
Ryan.
who played,
Who played
Ben, or James Ranson, who had played Eddie. I'd never seen them or heard of them before, but Eddie was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he mimicked that kid's mannerism so well.
Yeah.
And I agree that they just did not give Ben enough. But we don't know what was left on the cutting room floor. The original cut of this movie was 4 hours long.
Right.
So they cut out so much. So we don't know what was there for him, what meat and potatoes he had to work with.
I also don't think Jessica's Chastain. I don't think Beverly translated very well from the kid either.
Me neither. That
To
was
be honest with you,
I think the weakest
I
transition for me.
I think they lost it because the casting was great, but the transition from her child character to adult was not. It didn't.
Where do you feel the disconnect was on that?
I don't know. There were just specific things I thought that the child did that you didn't see it in Jessica Chastain.
Do you feel
I
like
have a thought on that.
the child was more rebellious
Yeah,
than Jessica Chastain was?
100%. Yeah,
And
I agree with that, but I also like where Jessica Chastain took it because it was almost like a return to her character when she was living with her abusive father. Instead of the father, it was an abusive husband or an abusive spouse or whatever their relationship
Yeah.
was.
and if you follow the source material, it's the same thing. So she was more of a rebellious kid, but not with her father. And when she grew into an adult, she had lost that rebelliousness quality. Yeah, she had lost her rebellious quality and become very subservient.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the biggest
Which
one
happens
for
a
me
lot
too.
to like people.
She was just more of the spark too. In the first one, she gives the losers club like the edge. Like
Right.
they all seem pretty like bark not bite, and then when she sort of got fostered in, she added this element of like you know she smoked and she broke the rules, and she carried the sort of the loser squad. Even though it was Bill who was the the leader, the de facto leader, I always saw her as the integral piece of the losers club, and so in part 2 she was like almost a non-factor.
And in the source material, that's
exactly
exactly
how
how
it
it is in the
That's how
source
it is.
material. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, her only thing for the story was
They-
her love life. Like that was who's she going to be with, Bill or?
And they had pulled
it's-
that much.
They did.
they had pulled out of it her ability to her dreams and everything else because she was able to see all of this stuff happening, and they didn't have that as much in the movie.
No,
as
it was
well.
just
and
a
I think that
brief
would have given
Say it.
right, and I think that would have given her character a lot more
I agree. I agree.
in the movie if they would have included that.
Gotcha.
I agree.
Well, besides this inconsistency, if we can even call it that, was there any more inconsistencies in the storyline or in any like small details going from that chapter 1 to chapter 2 that you guys can really think of?
Not really. There wasn't anything that stood out to me that had happened in chapter 1 that wasn't carried over into chapter 2, or that there was something that says, well, continuity wise or anything like that. I didn't really notice anything.
It flowed pretty well.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I don't know.
They didn't jump back and forth as much.
Not very often. No, it was very brief when they did, but they held in each generation is what I'm going to call it for quite a bit, which was nice. It wasn't just hey, let's look back here really quick and then jump back into the regular story. So it felt like two different movies being played simultaneously, which I really appreciated, especially with how they were able to maneuver in between the two.
They had a couple really great transitions, like that transition from them going down into the clubhouse.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
was fucking fantastic.
Absolutely.
Best part.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
but yeah,
Good. Has anyone read the book?
to read.
I've read about a quarter of it.
Only a couple times.
Only a couple of times.
Well, since you have read it, does this movie represent the book well? Do you think? Does it stay close to the source material?
To me, it represents the essence of the book really well. For obvious reasons, they couldn't include certain things that were in the book. I mean, the 1990 version, they obviously couldn't include certain things in the book. And even now, with CGI and everything else, there was still some things that they couldn't do because it just wouldn't make sense to the audience. And I'm just going to throw out a few things. The Ritual of Chud is what it's called when they were figuring
the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is a lot different in the book. Bill actually goes to another plane of existence and has a conversation with a giant space turtle.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah. You know,
When you're high as fuck.
When you are tripping balls,
Stephen King
that's
loves
what
his
you do.
giant turtle,
so they couldn't put that in there because it just wouldn't make sense in this case.
Before you go past that,
Yeah.
is that where the references in the first one where they were talking about the turtle and you saw the little Lego turtle? That was that part of it?
That was a tip of the hat to it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Because that was a little bit of what I was waiting for. I remember talking about the turtle in the first episode, and I was hoping it would come back and make a reappearance.
There's a turtle appearance in the second one, too.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, shit,
when he
I missed
goes
it.
into the school, when he goes into that classroom,
Uh-huh.
there's a turtle sitting on the teacher's desk or something like
Oh,
that.
damn, I didn't catch that. Okay.
There's definitely a turtle reference.
Teenage
He is
Mutant
definitely
Ninja
turtle enough for the turtle club.
Other things that they kind of skipped over, not skipped over, but in the book, Stanley's suicide was really kind of a non-thing. All he did was he got scared, went to the bathroom, slashed his wrist, and wrote "it" on the wall. This one gave him more of a reason for what he did. So I think they integrated that really, really well and gave his death more importance. The whole Henry Bowers and Mike Hanlon thing in the book, he actually puts Mike into the hospital.
Oh, sure.
So he's not actually there for the battle with Pennywise. In the book, there's only 4 people there for the battle.
Okay.
So this gave them more of an upper hand when it came to that. I already talked about Maturin the space turtle. Oh, and at the end, because Pennywise is so integrated into the community of Derry, when they kill him, it actually wipes out half the city. Mm-hmm. And then also at the end, they start to forget again. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, they're going to remember it forever. And there's more and more obvious things, but those are the ones that stuck out in my mind, having not read the book in probably over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like they're making all these major changes, and so I feel like they should have, in a 2-hour and 50-minute movie, made some similar changes to make Jessica Chastain's character more interesting.
But we don't know what was left on the cutting room floor.
yeah,
Okay?
a lot of like
see that
you know,
that's our biggest issue is in a 4-hour rough cut we don't know what was left there. We don't know if Ben had more, if she had more, or anything like that, and it just got taken out because of time's sake.
Are they releasing the 4-hour uncut, or am I thinking of a different movie?
Though he
releasing,
wants to do a super cut
5 hours.
like a 6 hour
Yeah.
yeah
Oh my god.
of both of them together.
together as one movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not much better, but that's a little better. I was like, that is horrible.
Yeah.
I would be very interested in seeing deleted scenes, though.
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Definitely.
I want to know what they cut because
Yeah.
for me, they used the young versions of them as major crutches in the storytelling in number 2. And if they cut a lot of stuff out of the adults, I want to know why instead of keeping on going back to the kids over and over again when, you know, using that kind of as a crutch.
Well, the reason they did the flashbacks so much is to reinforce that idea of they had forgotten everything. They were lucky to even remember Mike Hanlon's name when he called them on the phone. They had forgotten everything about their childhood in Derry. And that's what it was reinforcing, that getting those memories back while they were there.
I mean, I get the reasoning behind it, but I feel like we didn't get enough of them as the adults. And that was the major, like, weed part for me.
Of our non-readers, after seeing both of these, do you feel more compelled to try to read the book, or is that's
the one like most positive takeaway of seeing chapter 2 was I want to go back and I want to compare now. And like I said, I've read about a quarter of it, and I'm getting like, this is the first Stephen King book that I've ever read, so I'm trying to figure out his use of details, all of his details, because there's a fuck ton of details.
do a lot of coke, Greg?
Oh my god! Well, funny story.
I know.
You
I
got
saw that
Okay.
one.
Going through that, and there was a couple spots in the beginning of the book where it was just like, come on, get to it. And I need to go back and just remember all this. But there were parts in there like the whole introduction to Beverly, I remember from the book, the adult Beverly, excuse me. And I remember Stanley's suicide and just little pieces like that I picked up on. And now I want to go back and I want to reread and read the entire book and see how it compares, and now learn about the space turtle and maybe jump past that whole ritual situation, because that just creeps me out. But yes, I'm definitely going to go back and read the book.
You guys,
My wife read me the book out loud, all 1,100 pages of it. So I've
that's
read it.
adorable.
I know, it was cute. It was,
You know, they make
That's
books
the
on.
best. That's the best nighttime story. Okay,
Elizabeth
lay
read
down.
the book, and then
Can you
I'd
tell
be
me a
like,
story?
she'd read a chunk every day, and so I'd be like, "What'd you read today?" And then she'd give me the fucking cliff notes. So,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
you know,
All right.
I basically read it.
For me, that's a no. That book is like, what, 1,100 pages?
Yep.
And I have a really, and it really depends. I have before, but I have a really hard time reading the book after I've seen the movie, because the best part about reading for me is picturing
imagination.
everything.
Yep, I
and
agree.
I'm just going to see the movie, and I don't have the patience to just visualize the movie for what it's going to take 20 hours to read that probably. So
If you have a short attention span, Stephen King is not for you.
well, I've read a lot of other Stephen King, and I like Stephen King's writing style, but it
And
just
not all of his books are that long.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a
Yeah.
handful that are that long.
The
Most of them
Stand.
are fairly quick reads. I purposefully waited to reread this book. I wanted to wait till the movie came out because I didn't want it to be jaded or anything like that going in to watch it. So I'm looking forward to rereading it. It won't happen for a couple of months. I think I'm a little busy right now. So, but I will. I definitely want to reread it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started reading this when I was like 12 or 13, and I think I only got about halfway. So obviously 12 or 13 was a little bit ago for me. So I do want to reread it again, I think. But
Yeah.
even I, who loves to read, I'm like, oh my God, 1,100 pages.
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
crazy.
as much as I love Stephen King, he likes to ramble
Yeah,
sometimes.
but that's like wanting to reread The Stand before the miniseries comes out.
are they
I don't think
redoing
I'm
The Stand again?
Oh yeah, CBS All Access.
Wow, because there's already one miniseries of it, and I actually think it's
and
pretty
was,
good.
You know, it sucks balls.
I haven't read the books, but I liked the miniseries.
It was extremely miscast, but that's a different podcast. Continue, Maddie.
Our next podcast
The Miscast
is
podcast.
Patrick screaming. This is more comparison, but how do you compare the original miniseries to this, both overall and just as a standalone movie? Has everyone seen the miniseries?
Yes.
Okay. I know you saw it when you were like,
Yeah. That's been blocked out, so I can't answer this question.
it's okay. As I said, probably in another life, I would have been the asshole that shown that to you. So it's
To
fine.
me, it's extremely hard to compare
It's
the
tough,
two
yeah.
because the demands of this book just couldn't be handled in
In the
1990.
80s,
Yeah.
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 It's because of the subject matter in certain areas and just the technical aspect. Now, the 90 series or miniseries, I thought they did a pretty good job with what they had because there were some certain things like the spider at the end and all the other stuff.
Oh, we'll talk about this fucking spider soon.
Yeah. But they also couldn't handle, like I said, some of the subject matter, which they couldn't handle with how Beverly actually bonds the group together. There's no way they could have done that without
Someone going to jail.
very possibly, yes. Because she does have sex with all of them to forge that bond.
Should have had Roman Polanski do it.
They couldn't.
Just saying.
Don't sue us.
That's real dark for you, especially.
You should hear. You guys should have heard what I cut out of the
Jesus.
Rosemary's Baby episodes because I really taunted Tom on that one. And then also, the opening of It Chapter 2, they wouldn't have done that in 1990.
No, that's very true. Very true.
No.
Yeah.
In fairness, also, the miniseries was 3 hours and maybe a little bit of change long.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 was fucking 3 hours long of this. So they got almost 6 hours of content that they packed in to this remake, and they only got half that time for the miniseries back in the 90s. So they just weren't given enough or as much time to put everything in there.
But it kind of going along with what they were doing back then was they were kind of doing more of an essence of, or they were just kind of touching the source material. Right. Whereas here they're using the source material as their go-to. You know, I think back to I can't think of his goddamn name. The guy who did The Shining.
Kubrick.
Thank you. What he did with The Shining, you know, he used it as an inspiration, but it was Stanley Kubrick's The Shining based on Stephen King's The Shining. So I'm thinking that that's kind of what they were doing, exactly the same thing there with the original miniseries, where it was just like, we got a basic story, we're going to make it our own.
Right.
And now they're like, okay, well, they did that back then. Let's actually go back to the source material and use this as our roadmap.
And they were trapped, with TV. And
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can't do a lot of the stuff that they did on TV that they did with the movie. So
it's not really fair, like Patrick said, to compare.
it's an apples and oranges comparison.
at all. Yeah.
But like overall, like which one would you rather watch?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, no, this one.
I would say the new one.
I
new
don't
ones.
No, honestly, there's pieces in the 1990 version that I think are better than the new one. So, I
would agree.
It depends on the day that you
Yeah.
ask me, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I've only seen half of this equation, but I like the miniseries more. I enjoy it more. I think it's fun.
Honestly, like, it's really tough to. Now I'm after watching this, I'm almost like I'd rather watch Tim Curry play Pennywise every day of the week.
I don't agree
No,
with
I don't
that
agree with
at
that
all.
either.
However,
But once again,
I got
personal
you.
opinion.
I got you, Josh. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, different strokes for different folks. I think Tim Curry's amazing, and his take is completely different, though. I would go with the new one as well, simply because it's. I mean, we've kind of all touched on it in different ways. It's more visually appealing. You get more depth behind all the characters. I think there are parts of the old one that are better because since it is shorter, I think they also have less room for misfires as well. So
That's a good point.
You know, say what you want. Chapter 2 did not need to be 2 hours and 50 minutes because being that long, it's easier to point out all of the stuff that's bad about it. If it was a little tighter, maybe that would have helped out. And so there are things about the old one that's better, but overall, 9 out of 10
You
times.
also don't feel 2 hours and 50 minutes at all. That
No,
movie-
I did not feel.
I did
not feel it at all.
So,
The movie was done, and I felt it was like hour 45, 2 hours. I did not feel the time.
Guess
in
I'm
that at
alone
all.
on this one. I love long movies. They don't bug me at all, but I was really, I mean, I did see it really late and I had work that day. So that was probably part of it, but it did really feel.
Yeah,
feel
I
long.
never once felt like this is dragging. Never once felt like it was dragging.
I don't know if I felt like it was even dragging. I noticed that it was long as hell, but I wasn't upset by it by any means. I was still enjoying every aspect, but I did look at my phone a few times and like, geez, we still have 50
Oh,
minutes.
you're one of those people that look at your phone during a movie?
Kind of
Yeah.
an asshole.
Well, I don't check it, but I look at the time.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, but
this
that's still
movie
picking
wasn't
up
in
your
the
phone.
theater.
God, what an asshole.
I need to know the time sometimes.
No,
I'm not putting it out here. I'm like,
Yeah.
So I think the original miniseries really sparked a lot of people's fear of clowns. Like, I know it did my sisters and everything. Do you think this movie is going to have that same effect?
Not at all.
100% I do. I work with kids every single day, and we have several who have had nightmares because of the trailers.
But this
the
is
trailers.
But, okay, trailers. I'll buy that. But I guess where I was going to go is it's an R-rated movie, and if you're taking kids to it, you should understand that it's going to spark some fears in the
Yes,
Right.
that's exactly it.
There's
It's
yeah.
going to, I think.
Actually, a group of parents that made a theater take down
The posters.
the posters.
In
I
Australia.
read that.
Fuck
I read
those
that.
parents.
I know. I thought Australia had some more balls than we did over
Oh
here.
my
but apparently
goodness.
not.
Jeez.
We're rubbing off on them, apparently.
That's super
Well, I mean, we
annoying.
also did have that thing in 2015 where there were just like random people dressing up as clowns with like
Yeah.
weapons
Fuck
and like
that,
running.
dude. I actually had a dude on a clown. He was on a bike and he was following me. I was walking home from downtown across the O Street overpass, and I lived on like 18th and West O, and he followed me for like a mile, and I was scared out of my fucking mind. Like
When that was
weird.
happening, I worked at a police station, and like there was a thing that came up in the town over, and we heard it over the radio that there was a clown like knocking on people's doors, and one of the cops like looked at me and he's like, "If they come over here, I'm sending you out. I'm not going." And I was like, "I'm the fucking secretary."
You know, here's the thing. You're going to dress up like a clown, then you better be ready to get shot.
Yeah, you're gonna
Right.
get shot. Like, duh.
Fuck that.
But yeah, to answer your question, I don't think the clown thing is
No, I don't think that's
affecting children today. Like
not like it would back in 89, 90.
yeah,
I can't speak to 8990.
Wow.
Just from working with kids, I can tell you firsthand that it is scaring them. I don't think that it's the same because there's just kids have access to a lot more shit now.
Right.
Like there's just so much content available to them that's already probably way too mature for them. So I don't think it's going to hit, the cosmos or anything, but kids are definitely scared of the Pennywise that's in the new It movies.
I mean, yes, it'll affect kids on the same scale. I don't believe so.
Yeah. Probably
Not for 34 years or something like that.
I was
Yeah.
-6 when the first It miniseries came out. So.
Wow. Okay.
God damn
Thank
it,
you.
I'm old.
No more talking. Okay. Well, if you were going to make changes to this movie to suit your liking, what would you do to it?
Not go.
How long do we have?
We don't have as long as the movie ran.
Okay.
So,
That's
Maybe
a
I should skip.
that's a tough call because all of a sudden, if you're changing things, is it still Anthony Machete's movie, or is it Anthony Machete featuring Doofus Dingleberry over here making changes in a clown movie?
Are you calling yourself Doofus Dingleberry?
Yes, I did. Thank you for catching that. You know, if I'm making changes, I think I would change the look of Pennywise. I understand why they did what they did, but he's just the goofiest looking thing in the world. And I don't find any fear in a clown that looks like that. Again, that's just me. But, you know, I feel like the story was written really well. I was engaged the entire time the movie was on. Maybe, I don't know, like there was a couple of the scenes, the horrific scenes, where it was just like, really? I.e., the Paul Bunyan. I shouldn't look at you. You didn't see it. The Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
Was dumb as fuck. But
The what?
the Paul Bunyan. I think it was Bill Hader's character was out in the park and Paul Bunyan came to
statue.
life and tried
Oh,
to eat
yeah,
him or
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. That looked like it was out of Goosebumps. The
Right?
movie.
Right.
That was, yeah, that
100%.
did not belong in there. But
in a interview with Machete, that was something Stephen King requested.
Yeah, that was.
It was
Stephen King.
it was like on this list of things because he wanted to get his input after watching chapter one, and King gave him this list. That was the only thing on the list that made this movie.
that Paul Bunyan statue stands in Stephen King's hometown.
Yeah.
oh, okay, interesting. So
continue, sorry.
that brings me to my next point of I don't know that I can make changes because if this movie is closer to the source material, this saga of movies is closer to the source material. Was this a part of the book? Did Paul Bunyan come to life in the book?
And I would have to refer to someone else because I don't remember, that being part of the book.
Okay, and that's perfectly fair. And that was the one, you know, I've thought about, okay, I could do away with that. I could do away with that. But can we really do away with that? Because if it's coming from the source material, my hands are tied. You know,
Yeah.
you're trying to stay close to the source material. Stephen King wrote it.
Right, but
There you
just
go.
because it was in the source material doesn't mean it's a good idea to still have it in
I
the
agree.
book.
I agree with that.
If it didn't make sense in the book, then why would it make sense in the movie?
Right, and I get that, but that's why I'm wondering
Yeah.
if the Paul Bunyan coming to life was a part of the actual
and,
book.
And like I said, I would have to.
And that's perfectly fine. So I can't really make too much of a reference to that. More so the creative choices that they made. For example, like I'd said, the look of Pennywise would be my first change.
We had a conversation on a podcast a while back about books adapted to movies and sticking to the source material, or would you rather them stick to the source material, or would you rather give a director a little bit of
Creative
freedom?
Yep.
And if there was any place for Andy Machete to speak up and say, excuse me, Mr. King, we can't have this in the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Because it was the shittiest part of the miniseries. Can we please think of something better than a fucking spider? Because this spider thing ain't working for me. And I'm going to tell you right now, we'll do the spider, but it's going to look like shit. I'm telling you now, I'll promise you, the spider thing is going to fail twice. So please, Mr. King, can you think of something else besides this fucking spider to put in the movie?
The spider thing was one of my favorite parts about the new one.
was
I thought it was
terrible.
fucking awesome
It
on
was
the new one.
awful. It looked so bad.
I thought it looked rad.
And I agree with Jesse on this.
I thought it looked super rad.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah, I loved it.
just
I was
did
like,
not,
what the flying hell?
Yeah.
I thought it was sweet.
So that's, I guess, if there's a place for Andy Machete to play around in that film, I thought that was a good place to start. But I felt the same way though about there's 3 spots in that movie where my wife laughed, and she does not. That's not how she reacts to these kind of movies. And if my wife's laughing at a horror film,
You're done.
We've made
It's
a
game
mistake.
over.
And I mean, those 3 spots are just. So I was like, "Yep, you laugh all fucking day because you're right. This shit's laughable."
Let's put a pin in that because I want to know what those are.
Yeah.
Oh, I could probably tell you where they are right now.
Yeah.
The old chick with the saggy ass tits
That's
chasing her
the
around.
one.
The
Okay.
Paul Bunyan and the spider.
No,
That's 2 of them though. 2 out
that's
of 3.
one of them.
Oh, really?
The other one was the spot where Eddie goes into the basement to see his mom behind the curtain.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and the guy with
the leper, is that the
Yeah.
leper?
Yep.
It comes out,
Yeah.
laughed, and then
But that was a reprise from the first movie, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to remember where
Yeah,
this
because
guy came from.
that was the leper in front of the house.
That's what I thought. Okay.
there's another one. I'll think of it.
That's fine.
So
Yeah.
other than because I do agree with you guys that they needed to have a little bit more story to each adult, just a little bit more, because they were. I do believe that they were a little undertold for that. So that's one thing. Once again, that's adding to the length of the movie. But and this is with the book, this is with the 90s version, and especially with this one, they just need to find a better way to kill Pennywise. I don't mind the part where they have to actually destroy his heart to kill him. Getting up to that point
where they're belittling him and bullying him.
Exactly.
To
me, that was a
PSA on fucking like bullying and oh my gosh,
stand up for yourself and you'll defeat this evil that runs this town.
Felt like
that did bother me, and I think they just need to find a way to kill him,
mm-hmm.
and that part just did not work for me. To see him reduced to this sniveling baby,
that was it.
I thought that was
the third part
as well.
that you laughed at.
But
when he was like a little balloon looking, flat balloon looking.
That was it.
Yeah. So they just need to find a better way to kill him, or should have found a better way to kill him.
For me, I can't pinpoint. There aren't very many like very specific things. Just overall, because of the content, the whole point is like inner demons, and it's very supposed to be disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but even in the first one, it never felt very gritty or dark to me. It felt like a drama with very horrific things happening, but the actual execution of them always came off funny. Every single, even in the first one with when his huge head comes in the
out of the projector.
I'm like, dude, like I don't know what the deal is, but it's really hard to stay invested in the true horror of the scenario when every visual aspect of the really scary shit comes off funny. It's just,
we talked in the Chapter 1 podcast about that this movie needed to be dark as shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you're going to come back, you need to come back swinging, and this needs to be fucking dark.
Yeah.
And it had so much sunlight on it. It
was weak.
Died.
It was weak sauce.
It was very weak in a lot of ways. And then, I mean, he kind of, he went off on it as well. I think the development of the adult characters fell pretty flat for me. I was disappointed in all of them except for Bill Hader's character and the Eddie one.
Mm-hmm.
Even James McAvoy, as talented as he is, seemed like he was working with nothing.
Dropped the ball.
I thought his performance was fine, but I was just like, he has nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I was very disappointed in that aspect of it. But I don't know that there is a perfect way to change. I understand how difficult it is to adapt a book that's large, and you also have influences, of the miniseries, and there's a lot of aspects.
Absolutely.
So I can't say that I would have a specific way because the question was how to make it appeal to your.
How would you change it for you?
I can't really answer that part of it, but just I know what wasn't working for me in this particular instance.
Did we lose the love story in this film also between Beverly and Ben and Bill? Did we lose that somewhere? Because that was a big part of the miniseries, I felt like. And you even saw it in chapter 1. You saw
so good in chapter 1.
Those three were just, Ben is vying for Beverly, and Beverly wants Bill, and Bill's just kind of like, hey, this guy is blue.
Vying for his brother. I don't necessarily know that you lost it. I think you're getting a rekindling of it almost.
But you don't. They don't touch on it really at all.
I mean, it
seems like
brief.
an afterthought in chapter 2.
It's brief in chapter 2, but I don't think that they use that as a driving story or a driving storyline in chapter 2 as much as they did in chapter 1.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with them doing that because we knew kind of at the end of chapter 1 where that might go.
Yeah.
And that wasn't what I wanted the main story to focus on. We got some nice touches in there when Beverly and Bill kind of get their little moment. And
why the fuck do they kiss? By the way, that seemed so random in this chapter 2. The kiss came out of nowhere.
Where was it?
That's what I'm trying to remember.
They're all in the place where they're living. Sorry, they're in that place where they're that little motel, whatever, fancy. And
the B&B.
Yeah, Bill Hader's character is saying he's going to leave, and he goes after to try to get him to stay, and everybody's doing all this shit. And
that's right.
And then
she comes in and
just standing down there. They look at each other, and she just like kisses him, and I'm like, what the flying fuck? What?
Yeah. They get together in the book. I know they do in the book. Mm-hmm. Bill and Beverly get together in the book.
I don't know. Yeah,
and then we don't need to
probably.
see that, but like
agreed.
some moments of like some eye contact.
Well, it's
or
just pick one or the other.
something.
Be in, or because they were in on chapter 1,
Right.
Abandon it or give it its time, or else
Right.
it's a waste. I get the idea of let's not waste time, and so let's put a little bit of it in there. But
Right.
doing that is actually wasting time because it goes nowhere.
Right.
It's like this letter is the only thing that makes her. It's like.
It's the only
Does
thing
she
that
like
keeps it
anything
alive.
about him besides the fact that he wrote this letter? She doesn't ever look his way, but he happened to write this letter, so all of a sudden, she's going to abandon the fact that she's married and likes another guy because he wrote. It's like she never talks to him. They don't have. It doesn't show any chemistry between them. But he happened to write that letter 25 years before.
They touch more on Ben and Beverly than they do on Beverly.
Yeah,
and
and
Bill.
that's
Right.
still disappointing.
But they spent a lot more time on Beverly and Bill in chapter 1 than they did in chapter 2. And I think that was that realization where Beverly finds out that Ben was the one that wrote the letter and not Bill. I wish they didn't have B names. That really is throwing me off here.
Yeah.
But I feel like we get a little bit of a justice at the end there when they're doing their little like side spin off. Beverly's in the bathroom stall filling up with blood, and Ben is doing the quicksand situation. We get a little bit of a, I don't want to say a conclusion, but we get enough of a, okay, we kind of know where this one's going to go. Let's go back to fighting the stupid spider.
Right.
And I feel like it was enough to quench our thirst on what that was, but not to take away from the main story, because they were literally in the middle of the final battle. And I feel like you can't take away from that final battle because that is the most climactic scene of the movie. And why would you want to throw in, oh, hey, here's this little nod here, but we're going to expand on it because forget about this part. I don't know.
To me, it just felt like they just. If you're gonna do it, do it. If you're gonna
Commit or don't. Shit,
yeah.
or get off the pot.
Yeah,
I get it.
That's how I feel, and I felt like just in general, all of them having to fight their demon. I thought that was the weakest part of the whole movie. Is that each of their the things they have to move past to be able to defeat him.
Right.
I thought that all of those were just so poorly done.
Exactly. Like, why would you take? Like, I get that it's part of the final battle, but don't take away from the final battle. It just. Yeah,
I
it's.
gotcha.
I guess we got to move on.
Yeah, I was going to say, guys, wrap this up.
Oh.
Do you think they're going to continue making these, or do you think this is it? Like, is this the last It movie?
Okay.
If it's not, it should be.
Here's the thing.
It's got to be the end.
Andy Muschietti and Bill Skarsgård put out an article about wanting to make a
third
prequel.
one. Oh, a prequel. Okay.
A prequel to this. Whether they do it or not, I don't know what they'd even put in that prequel.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know.
I'd actually be more interested in that.
I would be more interested in a prequel than a sequel, definitely.
Yeah, I would say I love prequels.
I don't know where you would go with a sequel.
The story. Well, I mean,
if you follow the characters,
the characters, like when Pennywise actually landed, or the first, the 27 years prior to that.
No. I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't clarify. I could see a prequel more so than the sequel. Like, where would you go from the end of chapter 2
You
on?
can't. He's dead.
There's nothing to
They
do.
destroyed
on
his
that.
heart. Yeah.
So I could see where you would go starting at the beginning and then moving your way this way. That would make more sense to me than.
And that movie I would
But the
watch.
question is, should they? And I would say no.
They
Absolutely
shouldn't,
not.
but it sounds like they probably will because these It movies made a fuck ton of money.
Right,
So-
but the second movie didn't break records like the first one did, so they're thinking that the performance is not going to be as good
yeah,
money
it
wise.
probably won't. But if a horror movie's worth 20-25 million and you make 200 million,
You're going to make a
I
sequel.
understand.
Yeah, I get it.
Do you think they could have condensed both of these into one movie?
No.
Like, if they really
No.
tried?
No.
I would have liked to see a little bit more of an elongation of the movies, and I know that they talked about that with chapter 2, just to get a little bit more of the adult character development like we got with the first one. So I would like to see that much or more so than smashing them all into one.
I don't think I could see them getting as much material as they need to make an effective movie in one movie that's even 3.5 hours
no,
long.
I would say it would have to be 6 or more.
Yeah.
Because part 2 is 2 hours 50. Part 1 is like 2:20.
Yeah.
So that like 40 extra minutes would be bridging the gap between kid and adult, and that would be great. And he said he has a 6-hour cut that actually does that. It kind of has the transition
Put
from
it
kid
out.
to adult. And yeah, we'll see. I would buy that for sure.
If you're talking about a trilogy or doing 3 movies, I would almost rather see a 2-hour part on each. And I think you could get enough in between those, and then you really just knock that last movie out of the park when you got that final battle scene with Pennywise.
Yeah, I could see that too. But yeah, if they combine them all to make one, it would have to be 6+ hours.
Easily,
to be,
yeah.
to
Even
contend.
relevant to
Yeah.
what the source material is, or just developing the characters and the story.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys read any reviews before you went in to see this? And if
Nope.
Yes,
Nope.
I did.
Did you agree with any of them?
Absolutely not. Well,
Okay.
let me rephrase that. Yes, they have valid points in certain areas, but I don't. No, I take that back. I was going to say, like, I don't agree with these guys because they don't like the movie. That's incorrect. They do like the movies, just not as horror movies.
Yeah.
So, yes, I do not agree with most of the reviews, and that it is a slow movie, that it is not as effective as the first movie.
No, definitely not slow.
Yeah.
Definitely not slow at all.
I was thoroughly entertained by this movie, and a lot of the reviews I was seeing is it's too slow to be effective.
Yeah.
It's too slow to be a good movie.
It's equally as effective.
I
It's
watched
there's
one
spots that
review
that
as
just
well.
missed.
Right.
My review, I did, I would say overall I kind of agreed, but I definitely didn't agree on everything that I watched a video review. I don't really read reviews. I just watched the video reviews.
It's okay. Did Stephen King have his usual cameo?
Yes,
in
he
this?
did.
Yes, he did.
Where was he?
He worked at like
when-
an antique shop.
Yeah, when
He
Bill
sold
goes to get
him
his
the bike.
get the silver bullet,
Nice.
he's working there.
Is this worth a rewatch? And if you guys did rewatch it, do you think you'd like it more the second time?
Yes,
Yeah.
and yes.
I would
Definitely worth
rewatch
a
it.
rewatch.
I don't know if I would like it more or less, but I would go back and just pick out the things that I missed first time around.
If I lowered my bar, 'cause my bar went in high,
Yeah.
then I would 100% enjoy the fuck out of this movie. I just went in with a really high bar and went in hoping for some really dark shit, and it just did not.
You got a spotlight.
Yeah.
I will get the DVD. I will get the extended cut DVD. I will get the all-in-one version DVD. I am invested.
I agree
into
with
this
all
movie.
of that. I'll probably do if he has the whole 6-hour cut. That's the one I'm looking most forward to seeing because I really, really wanted to see more of that. The
And I'm
connection.
hoping that there is a butt ton of
bonus
special
materials,
features
yeah.
and bonus materials.
And I think I will like it more. When I watched the first one, I came out hating it. I wrote, because I was still doing my Facebook reviews and stuff a lot more back then, and I was super harsh on it. I had a ton of negative things to say, and then I saw it 2 more times since then, and every time I've seen it, I've started loving it more and more. I think I went from a 5 out of 10 to an 8.5 out of 10 after 2 more. So I probably will appreciate it more after seeing it.
I will borrow the DVD from Patrick. And I will borrow the extended cut DVD, and I will borrow the all-in-one.
We all
Josh,
know-
we all know your
You're gonna
spending
buy it.
habits when it comes to DVDs. You aren't going to buy
I will
it.
buy it.
We know you.
I will.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question overall, and then I kind of have some questions picking on people because I did listen to your guys' previous cast. Jesse, I'm sorry I don't have a lot of individual questions for
That's
you because
okay.
you weren't on the previous
That
cast.
is okay.
I'm really excited for this question because I'm hoping you guys punch each other. Tim Curry or Bill, what's his name?
Skarsgård.
Thank you.
Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård.
Seems like we're split here.
Curry.
I don't remember the movie, but I'm still saying Tim Curry.
Here's my thing. So I went over to my friend's house and we watched this terrifying clown porn, and all the clowns were. Don't look at me like that.
I just wasn't expecting that. No, we're good. It really.
All the clowns kind of
right.
looked more like Tim Curry, and to me that was fucking scary.
Wait,
That's
did they look
scary
like Tim Curry? Did they look like
The Tim
Pennywise?
Curry's Pennywise.
Okay.
You know what I meant. You know damn well what I meant.
They put Tim Curry makeup on. It was terrifying.
So yeah, no, it was that to me is the scary clown. Like Bill.
Well, yeah, I mean, a scary clown naked doing.
No,
porn.
they just like put their dick out of their costume.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
going to describe this on this cast again.
This is not dick pics.
This is not. We're not talking about dick pics. All right. So is it 3-2?
No, it's 2 and 2. Well, you're 3. You're right. Yeah, it's 3 for Tim Curry.
I did not
2
say Tim Curry at all. I did not say Bill Skarsgård at all.
Okay, so Josh, tiebreaker.
No,
I thought I heard you say Skarsgård.
I said, based on my viewing Friday, I think I'd rather watch Tim Curry. But there's things that they both do really well. There's things that they equally do really well. So I would draw the line down the fucking middle, really, because the look-wise, I'm not a fan of. I was a big fan originally of Bill Skarsgård's look, and all of a sudden, when I saw it on Friday, I didn't love it as much.
Let
silly
me
to
expand on
me.
that. Is that they played a lot with CGI on his character in Chapter 2 more than what they did in Chapter 1, which to me then says, is he really acting or is that CGI, that type of thing? So that's that part of me would say Tim Curry had less to work with in that sense and still made it a creepy character.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to being a frightening clown, I think Skarsgård's
I'm on
is
the other
better.
end of the Tim Curry. I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but Tim Curry had way more screen time. I feel like he was way more of a factor in the miniseries. Bill Skarsgård is super underutilized in both. And then the fact that he does look like a baby with like clown makeup on, and he still manages to elicit like some level of legit creepiness, I think also it attributes to his skill as opposed to being a hindrance, because he is still manageable as a creepy clown, and he does not look creepy whatsoever. And they really don't use him much. And so the fact that he stands out under those circumstances, I feel like both go towards him.
Cool.
My thing with Tim Curry is the same thing I felt about Art the Clown. Art the Clown looks like a scary man in a clown costume. And I think that's scarier than Twiddles the Dancing Clown or whatever the fuck Bill was trying to do. Because it just came across too silly. For me, as I said, I think it's creepier to have someone that looks like an actual man just wearing a clown shenanigan get up, because you're like, fuck, there's people that exist and they're probably in my fucking sewer.
But Pennywise in defense too is not that.
Right.
He
No,
is
he's
not
not.
that.
But like,
And-
that to me is just that image
But
is
you're
creepier
right,
than
yeah.
and I still with the way, and like I said, I love Tim Curry's portrayal of it. To me, he still looked too much like Bozo the Clown.
Is
that type of
100%
thing.
Bozo the Clown.
Yeah. So for me, I liked the retro. Retro is probably not the right word.
Renaissance.
Type.
Vintage.
Yeah, the vintage. Thank you. Look and feel of the new Pennywise.
Do you think if they would have put that same look on Tim Curry,
It wouldn't have been. No, it wouldn't have been the same, because the miniseries was also a bright movie,
Color-wise?
color-wise.
Sure.
Everything was very colorful in that
Whereas
movie.
this is a lot more muted. And I completely get that. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, if kind of like you said, if Tim Curry was dressed up like that, would it have worked? You can't really flip the two because they are two different performances in two different styles of movies. And it's another apples and oranges comparison. Yeah, they're both fruit, but they're completely different. So I still think that the Tim Curry style of Pennywise is far creepier. But I do appreciate that Bill Skarsgård was able to do some of the things that he does, because there are aspects in these movies where he does come across as fucking terrifying.
yeah,
But it's just not as often as I wanted it to be. You know, I went into that first movie off of a childhood fear for 30 years, and I was ready to come out of there like, I am done with clowns. I'm rolling myself into a sanitarium, and I'm not going to see you guys for years until I get this fear taken care of. Yeah. And I walked out of there thinking that was kind of weak sauce.
I feel like Bill Skarsgård's performance was a lot more introspective. There's so much more in the eyes. I feel like he was doing a lot of intangible things. That performance versus performance, you know, that's one thing, but he did things with his body. He was contorting, and I heard he really did a lot of the, when they didn't use CGI, he did a lot of the actual movements, and so he was really putting his body through it.
And that's mad props to him. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I would put that his performance, especially underneath the bleachers in Chapter 2, up against anything that Tim Curry did in the miniseries.
And the first scene of Chapter 1 too, I thought was a very chilling introduction to Pennywise, when he's just in the sewer,
taking Georgie.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I agree with.
Strongest scenes for sure.
I 100% agree with that, and I love the fact that Skarsgård was able to do that thing with his eye au naturel.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a meme actually today, where he was talking with Bill Hader, and Bill Hader didn't realize that he was able to do that, and he did it, and actually scared the crap out of Bill Hader, which is really cool. So I definitely give props to Skarsgård for being able to do what he did. Yeah. There was not enough of what he could have been able to do.
Seems like we all agree though that if they make an extended version, we need more of Skarsgård.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm done picking on y'all as a group. Individually, I'm going to fire some out. We are running a little long. So
I'm used to it.
if I could not have a Stephen King novella from all of you guys, I'd appreciate. Greg, you said last time you were kind of dragged to the first one. Were you more excited to go to this new one?
I said I was dragged more out of dramatic effect.
You being dramatic?
Yeah, right. I did want to go, and I did say this in the first episode, or the episode where we did talk about Chapter 1, because being 34 and still being afraid of a clown movie is a little ridiculous. especially for a co-host on a horror movie podcast. Kind of needed to bury that stigma, pun intended. I was excited to go and check this one out because I wanted to see how this ended. I wanted to see where the saga took us. I wanted to give myself the opportunity to not necessarily reintroduce myself, but discover what this was as a story, or even as a universe as it is. Because we talk horror movies on here. It comes up quite a bit, and I feel stupid sometimes for not being able to, or for not having watched that, or for considering myself terrified of watching this 1990s miniseries. It seems ridiculous. So I was excited to check this out and see where it took us, see what it was all about, being able to review it on my blog, shameless plug, and talk about it here on the podcast. So no, it wasn't me dragging myself, but I was interested, and I was going to go and see it.
Good. Josh.
What? I thought you had a couple questions.
She said no novella. Okay.
No, the one that I actually had written for Greg originally, he's already covered. It was about there not being a lot of horror elements to this, and we've all talked about that. You mentioned there wasn't a lot of tension in the first one. Do you think there was more of a tension built up in this?
No, I think they're pretty equal. I didn't really feel a lot of tension sat in either one of them, to be honest with you. So no, I thought they were pretty across the board, equal. So yeah. And then short
Josh,
question.
My partner in extreme horror. Right. Were there any rough watches?
So here's the thing. To me, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 started out with the most brutal parts of the movie. Chapter 1 being Georgie's death, and Chapter 2 being the hate crime that happens at the very beginning of the movie. The most brutal part to me of Chapter 2 was the beginning of the movie. That I would agree with that. Toughest part to watch. There's spots under the bleachers. You covered it. Under the bleachers, there's a scene that's kind of rough, but I mean, not anything extreme. And there's a scene in a fun house with a bunch of mirrors.
I was hoping someone mentioned that. That was actually one really of the better
scenes. I mean, cool, but like nothing like I can't handle. But the out of all of the kills from Chapter 1 through Chapter 2, the beginning of Chapter 2 was brutal. Yeah, it was rough.
And to expand on that, I think it was so brutal because we were presented with real life horror,
100%,
as opposed to fanciful horror.
So
no Paul Bunyan.
Also, it made a statement about Pennywise, and that you saw this horrific hate crime, and it had no relevance to Pennywise. He is so evil. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you've just been hate crimed in such a horrific fashion. He's gonna fucking eat you. It shows how separate from any form of empathy he is.
Right, but if you look at it, he's also responsible for what happened to those two people up there, because he inherently feeds evil to the community.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, top to bottom, there wasn't really extreme horror in it. But I already covered it. That part was rough.
Patrick, you talked about in the first cast we did you guys did on this, how uncomfortable you were with those touchy scenes with younger Beverly between your father and the pharmacist and whatever. Now that the character's older, are there still uncomfortable scenes there with her? And did that impact? Were they still super uncomfortable? Okay,
so the question I have for you then is: are you referring to her as an adult, or okay?
Like compare those. Like, were they still uncomfortable to watch?
Anytime that there is abuse in that way, where there is domestic abuse going on, it is very, very uncomfortable for me. And when adult Beverly was with her abusive husband, it was going along. I knew it was going to get bad, but that punch was sold so well that I just cringed like nobody's business. And I was actually surprised they didn't do something with makeup on her face because she was punched so hard. I mean, she went flying. So yes, it was still uncomfortable, but that one was not as uncomfortable as a flashback later on with she was with her dad and he's spraying perfume all around her and him and then embracing her. And
That was worse than anything from
to
one.
me,
for
that
me.
was worse than anything from one, and the abusive part in the early part
I
of the
agree.
movie that just really made my skin crawl. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Well, we have come to the end. Let's rate. We rate on 3 things here: gore score, fear factor, and overall rating.
There you go.
Gore score out of 10. Greg.
I would probably give it a 4, 5 maybe. I mean, there's not a lot of gore that sticks out in my mind, and the gore that was there wasn't all that gory. So I think maybe 4 is even generous.
Patrick.
I would agree with Greg, 4 or 5, right in that area. There was a lot of blood, but there wasn't a lot of gore. There wasn't guts ripped out or anything like that. 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm going to sit in that 5 spot.
Jesse.
I think I'm going to go 5 as well. There's a lot of gross stuff, but I don't call all of the gross stuff gore. There's a lot of stuff that's like, that's disgusting, and I'm not happy to be looking at it, but just gore, there's hardly any. So yeah, I'd say 4 or 5.
I think there's a lot of like initial, like the scene under the bleachers could have been a gory scene, but as soon as you see him chomp on her face, it's scene's over.
Yeah.
Or even the fun house. Not the fun house.
Saying
the,
you just see the blood splash and then it's done. Yeah.
Now, you could give it 1 extra point for the scene with Beverly in the bathroom stall.
For actually,
scene in cinematic history.
swimming in blood.
Although
Women see that all the time. We don't give no fucks.
the scene from chapter 1 of her in the bathroom, that's
You thought that was
fucking
worse
fantastic
than the
scene.
yeah,
stall?
100%.
Did you? Okay.
When it all comes out of the sink in her bathroom in her house, way
I think
grosser.
I think how it was done, I agree with you, Jesse. I think the out of the sink, because you weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
Whereas as soon as you see it start to bubble over the toilet, you knew what was going to happen. And by the time she's drowning in it, it's just like, okay, we get the point. But it was the sheer surprise factor of, oh my God, that's a lot of fucking blood.
Yeah.
So
All right, now we're gonna go on to fear factor.
the 1.
There were times that I cringed, not so much in fear. I'm going to give it like a 4.
Okay, so when you say cringe, do you lump in that scene with Beverly with the spraying and the
I lump in that. There's even times like when he does chomp people's heads and stuff like that. That does make me jump a little bit.
Okay, I will change. I'm going to change to a 3 because of those. More so the abuse and the really creepy perfume spraying thing. There was a couple jump scares where I like flinched, but I never felt like any true fear out of this.
No, I didn't feel true fear or anything. So.
Yeah, so I'm going to go 5, and here's why I'm going 5. Because there were enough jump spots in that movie for people who are non-horror fans would have affected. 5 plus 1, I'm going to give it a 6 just because of the Thing reference. That's it.
Okay. Jesse.
Okay. I don't know. I really don't get scared almost ever. For me, my appeal to horror is more of a discomfort. I appreciate horror that makes me just feel uneasy. Like Hereditary was a huge one for me. I still think that movie's fucking... Anyway, I would say discomfort level, probably up in the 5 range. True fear level 1 or 2. I'm going to bridge the gap and go 3.5.
Hereditary can bite my ass. Overall...
I give it a 6, and I go back to my previous statement. It's a great drama film with a mediocre horror attached. If you're going to see, you're looking for character development, you're looking for a good drama story, it's there. There's going to be a clown that's chasing people around and making you laugh. So 6.
As stated at the beginning, I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. And I put it on par with the first movie. I don't know what I gave the first movie, to tell you the truth.
I don't think we rated it.
Didn't we?
I don't think
I'm
so.
not sure we
I don't think
did.
we had the
Did we
ratings
have
at that
the
point.
rating at that point?
Maybe
no.
not. Yeah. So I would give this an 8.
Yeah, I was going to give it a 6, right there with Greg. Plus 1 is 7 for the Thing reference.
See, I'm the opposite. I would start with 7 minus 1 for that super, super bad ham-fisted shot of them looking at their reflections and then it reversing as them as kids in
I
the
fucking
window.
love that shot.
That was a
I
cool shot.
fucking hate. That's the worst part about the movie for me. It's so over the top. Like, we get it.
But how about that Thing reference?
I don't even know the Thing reference you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't
to be
either.
honest.
Enlighten us, please.
No, yeah.
I'll
us
tell you
what
off.
the thing
I'll
was.
tell you off the podcast.
Okay, there's apparently a Thing reference.
Look for the Thing
is it Bill
reference.
Hader? Is it Bill Hader?
No, I'll tell you off the podcast. But look for the Thing reference, you Thing fans.
You think?
Oh my
that.
God.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our cast. Obviously, chapter 2 is a little bit of a mixed bag, but, go check it out. Do what you want. Thanks a lot to our special guest, Jesse, from me, Greg, Patrick, and Josh. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to do plugs.
If you're looking for some quality movie reviews, jump on over to gregthemovieguy.com. I write movie reviews in a positive light, so you won't see any hate on there. Maybe a little dislike, but not a lot of hate. gregthemovieguy.com.
Yeah. If you're looking for a really cool Thing reference, go check out It Chapter 2.
Can't.
Otherwise, October 11th, 12th, and 13th, you can catch us at the Prairie Lights Film Festival in Grand Island, Nebraska at the historic Grand Theater. It's going to be a fucking off the hook time. It's super cheap, $5 for a day, $10 for a weekend pass. You get a bunch of cool vouchers in there. There's after parties. If you're a filmmaker or if you're somebody who's interested in getting into filmmaking, that is a great place to be. Come pick our ears because we love to talk about our shit. So was that wrong?
That was
Yes,
weird.
that was
Pick our
strange.
ears.
Pick our brains.
Don't
Pick
ever
our
pick our
brains.
ears.
Well,
Say,
You have
wait,
to
I
go
don't
through
want.
the
I don't.
ear.
I mean, don't pick our noses.
You
I
would
don't
go
want
through
any
the ear,
Q-tips.
reach the
I don't want
brain,
any
so-
Pick
Q-tips going
our
on.
brains.
Keep your fingers
About-
away from our ears.
Don't touch our faces. Go ahead, Jesse.
Gnarly Pioneers Film Company. That is the name of my up-and-coming film production company. I will have cards soon, but I do have a Facebook page, so go on to Facebook and search Gnarly Pioneers Film Co. and go ahead and give it a like, and then make sure you're checking back in. I always post updates about all of the projects that I'm involved in.
Patrick.
So if you're a fan of the podcast, we know you are, make sure that you head on over to whatever platform you're listening to us on and make sure that you rate and review us.
You know my favorite part about the podcast tonight? We didn't do the news.
The what?
The what?
Take us out, man.
No.
We're not doing the news.
No news.
Thank you, you beautiful motherfuckers,
even
from all
say
of us
anything?
at Midnight
That's
Frightcast.
fantastic.
Have a good night.
Good night.
God damn it, Josh.
I know, I fucked that up.
You